guys, introspection here, and I'm back again with another video. So today I wanted to discuss survival bias. Now there's a good chance you have no idea what I'm talking about, which is okay because I didn't either until recently. But upon learning about it, I realized that it is so important that we understand it, or at least the basics of survival bias. Whether it's because we don't want to fall into misconceptions, or because we don't want to get swindled, basically just to keep our sanity sometimes, you probably want to understand this. So if that's you, which I really hope it is, because if it's not, I'm not entirely sure what else to say right now, but if that's you, then I highly suggest you stick around. Now, if you've been or have seen some of my recent videos, there's a good chance you know I've recently read this book called How Not to Be Wrong. If you haven't seen those videos, I promise you that book is not as egotistical as it sounds, but that does mean it falls in the realm of math. Don't worry, I'll keep the bad numbers away so that they can't hurt you anymore. Okay, alright. But for real, there isn't gonna be any actual number crunching in this video. Yes, you can get into advanced math when we're talking about survival bias for sure, but unless you're a statistician, for our purposes, we really don't need to. This is gonna be completely principles, so don't worry, there's not going to be any adding, subtracting, dividing, or anything like that. This is totally principle. So, we're going to have to start out with a story, going all the way back to the before times, specifically World War II. Even more specifically, the United States military. Even more specifically, the United States military Air Force. Why did I just say United States Air Force? Well, whatever. Back in the United States military Air Force place, one person was like, hang on a sec, this person here was like, brah, they keep shooting our airplanes down. And this other dude was like, I know, brah. Why do they keep shooting our airplanes? I don't know, brah, but we gotta stop them from shooting our airplanes down, brah. Because if we don't, we're gonna lose all of our airplanes, brah. I know, brah, right? Brah, we gotta stop this, brah. Okay, we're done with that. Anyways. Point is that they were trying to figure out the best way to keep, their airplanes from being shut down for obvious reasons. Now, the immediate thought is, well, let's just armor them so that you can't shoot them down, which is kind of what they did. But obviously you can't armor the entire airplane like crazy because, well, then you lose speed, efficiency, maneuverability, mileage, and you put enough of it, it just kind of falls out of the sky like a rock. So you can't just armor willy-nilly. They had to be smart about this. So eventually they collected this data. Watch me draw this. Boom. Did you see how fast I drew that, guys? I'm a master artist. Ignore the paste button over here. That has nothing to do with it. I drew this. I drew this, okay? Alright? Anyways. Now, what this is a representation of where, statistically, most of the airplanes that came back had bullet holes. Now, looking at this model, knowing what these red dots are, where would you put the armor, logically speaking? Go ahead, pause the video, go down to the comment section below, and leave me your guess. That is a legitimate request. I am begging you because YouTube needs to see interaction. Otherwise, it just ignores me, so please do that. Heck, that doesn't even have to be a legit guess. Just put something down there. Alright, hopefully you did that. Hopefully you've come back. Because hopefully I didn't scare you away. And there's a good chance a lot of you would say, oh, well, this is where all the bullet holes are. Oh, hang on. This is where all the bullet holes are, so logically speaking, we should put the armor where all the bullet holes are so that it can absorb the impact of the bullets. Which is how any normal person, to include myself prior to learning about this, would have armored the airplane. As it turns out, that's wrong, and doing that would have gotten a lot of airplanes shot down in the sky. Let me explain why. See, they only had the data from the airplanes that came back. Right? So what about the airplanes that didn't come back? Well, they figure, or at least the mathematician, yeah, they hired mathematicians for this. People don't realize this. Mathematicians are very influential in these kinds of things. This was a great example of how influential mathematicians are, and nobody realizes it. they called in mathematicians to figure out where they should put the armor. And they figured out that it doesn't make sense, or after thinking about it, it didn't make any sense to put it where the bullet holes are, because that's all the airplanes that came back. If you think about it, the airplanes that didn't come back probably got shot here, 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 and here. Because the ones that got shot where all the red dots are made it back. So logically, the places where they didn't get shot is probably where the other airplanes did get shot. So they figured, well, let's see. The ones that survived had the bullet holes here, so that means that this is where the plane can withstand the bullet holes. So the ones that didn't survive probably got hit everywhere else, which means that those are the places that cannot withstand the bullet hole, or the bullets. Sorry, the bullets. Therefore, we should armor that part of the airplane. Now, you might be like, okay, great, but I have no intention of going into any sort of military and advising as to how they should armor their planes and tanks and such. So how on earth is this helpful? Well, it's true. You're probably not going to, armor planes or tanks, but if you do, I want a free ride, okay? If you have the ability to get me a free ride on a tank, I don't even have to shoot anything, I just want to ride in one, okay? Please. But most of you, probably not the sitch. So you're thinking, all right, well, how's this going to come in handy? What's happening here? What are we going to do? Well, the reason why this is important to understand in principle is because this applies in in a lot of situations you see, especially with today's social media. Let me explain to you what I mean. Let's say we have this rich person. His name is Dave. Don't ask me why, it's just Dave. Now, there's nothing wrong with Dave. He made his money honestly. He didn't backstab anybody. I know it's hard to believe that anybody could make money without backstabbing people, but let's just say this guy did, okay? And he is like, all right. What I did was I used this marketing strategy, and I used this method of analyzing patterns, and I used this, so on and so forth. And everybody is all here, right? That's me, that's you, that's some other person, that's Jared, and we're all watching Dave explain what he did. Now, logically, we might all think, oh, well, Dave succeeded, so we need to do what Dave did, right? Makes sense. But imagine that Dave is the airplane that came back. What happened to everybody? Do we have the data, is what I'm trying to say, is do we have the data of everybody who tried this? Odds are we only have Dave's data. We don't have the data of everybody who tried this. And there's a good chance that Dave is like one out of, let's just say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just say 5. Dave is maybe one of 5 people who tried this method that actually succeeded. So this method would have, like, I'm drastically oversimplifying it here, guys. Statisticians would look like this and be like, this is not realistic in the slightest. And they'd be right. But that's because I told you, I'm not going to number crunch here. I'm keeping it very simple. So it'd be like a 1 in 5 chance that this system actually works. The problem is that we have not seen these people. We don't have that data. We only have Dave's data. And it's not necessarily that Dave's trying to trick anybody. It's not that Dave's sitting here like trying to scheme or deceive us. But that what worked for Dave, it isn't necessarily what's going to work for everybody. There's a good chance Dave got lucky. And I should probably clarify, what I mean when I say Dave got lucky doesn't mean that he just sat back and money just started rolling in. I just mean that stuff more or less aligned so that he had the opportunity to follow what was probably a very difficult path to get whatever success he has now. Or another thing that can happen is that it would have been something you could have done back when Dave did it, but because it's not back when Dave did it and it's today, it's not necessarily going to work. For instance, let's say railroads, back all the way before even the first cars were invented. Railroads, of course, were a huge thing. If you had railroads, there's a good chance you could make a lot of money off of it. But obviously, even though railroads are still super, super important, you're probably not going to make the kind of fortune you would have back in the day when they were like the really main only method of long-term transportation. So, what am I saying? Am I saying should you just ignore everybody who is successful in trying to give you advice? No! That's dumb! Don't do that! Obviously, if they're successful, chances are they probably know what they're talking about. And thus, you probably want to listen when they're giving you advice. But what I am saying is that you want to take into consideration why the advice worked and how many other people might have already tried that, and see if is this a statistical anomaly that this worked? Is it correlated to anything? Is it just coincidence that he did this and was successful and it actually had nothing to do with success? Like, for instance, perhaps one thing is like, oh, I read 3 books from this series every year, something like that, right? That could have a correlation to it, but then you gotta look at, okay, how many people read this book? How many people actually became successful after the book came out? Maybe there is an immediate correlation to it. Maybe it's just that he just so happened to like the book. Both are very real possibilities. So again, what I'm saying, I'm not telling you to ignore successful people's advice. That's, again, very, very dumb. Obviously, they're successful for a reason. It's probably because they were able to think of a way to become successful. I'm just saying, look into it, essentially. Don't just assume that because they did it, it will work for you. It might not, but before you do it, you might want to take a few other factors into consideration to at least see if it's likely to work for you or if not. Alright guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and my amazing art. I mean, again, did you see how fast I drew that airplane? I mean, I impressed myself. Well, again, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any other ideas as to what I could do on this channel, I'd really appreciate it. Make sure to leave all of those advices and suggestions down in the comment section below. Of course, I will be considering survival bias if you guys give me a popular topic that other YouTubers have done. But I would still appreciate it. Otherwise, make sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell button. I post every other week. And until next time, hear nothing and listen to all. Bye, guys.